Angine de Poitrine.
This is either the first reaction video you've seen about this band or the 10th. In either case, you'll see something new that hasn't been talked about elsewhere, because we've noticed something that nobody else has, and it cuts right to the nub of what makes their music so addictive. And spoiler alert, it's to do with they're selling out tours across the globe. Seriously, I keep seeing events in the UK pop up with them headlining and then just boom, sold out. Today we're going to break down the exact psychological and musical traps that they use to make uncomfortable music sound completely irresistible. Full disclosure, I'm a musical numpty, although I do like a bit of Rush. Luckily for me, this fellow is an actual musician, Save With Crypto. He's my friend and co-host over on the Save With Crypto YouTube channel.
Angine de Poitrine, Save With Crypto.
That works.
Hello.
That worked really well. I'm so glad you worked on that. Welcome, by the way. Thanks for joining me on this. I felt like for this particular video, I needed to bring in someone who basically knows what they're talking about. I'll probably just play a little bit of their music here. This is from the KEXP live session that they did, which is approaching 14 million views, and it was published in February. Play a bit of it. So good. And man, I feel like it's good to actually launch into the middle of one of their songs a bit like this, because sometimes you see these videos and people start from the start, you see it all kicking in slowly, but this is when they're in full flow, full rocking mode. And you probably noticed straight away that alien appearances, maybe that's one of the main things, isn't it? That one has an extremely long nose covered in polka dots, but the music is off, isn't it? Are they just playing in sharps and flats, or is there something more to it?
One of the first things a lot of people might notice is that the guitar neck has a lot of frets, and that's because they use microtones, which is a note that doesn't normally exist in Western music. So, for example, on a keyboard, between each note, you've got what we call a semitone, or I think in the US they call it a half step. So you've got a semitone, and then the tone is like two of those. But what the guitarist guy, KHN, what he's able to do is just to play a note that's in between, for example, in between an F and an F sharp, which I believe is called F half sharp, in the same way that there's also, when you're talking about a flat note, so for example, if you've got an A, and then you're playing like an A flat, there's also a note there as well, which is called A half flat. So these are notes that aren't normally heard in Western music, because in Western music, an octave, so going from a C to a C, the next octave up, the octave is divided into 12 notes, and what they're using here is the octave divided into 24 notes. So that's one of the reasons it sounds bizarre. The other reason is the time signatures they use are not what you hear all the time, and certainly not what you hear in rock music. Yeah. Most rock music tends to be in 4/4, where you've got 4 beats to the bar and everything is like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Their music has some unusual time signatures, so that plus the microtonal aspect of it is why they sound strange.
So it throws you for a loop. The unusual time signature, it plays with your expectations, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not what your brain expects. It's uncomfortable. But the microtonal idea isn't new, by the way. It's been and still is in existence in Indian and Arabic music. The Indian octave, they divide it into 22 notes, which don't even fall on the normal 12 notes, if you like. I believe Arabic music is like that as well, and it's been like that for a long time.
It goes to show that it's just conventions. We've grown used to a particular musical convention in the West.
Yeah, it's probably, if you to have like the art equivalent, like it's not a nice landscape with trees and skies and stuff. It's more challenging stuff that you probably don't expect to see, or in this case, you don't expect to hear. The strange time signatures, I think that works because it sounds like it ought to be rock music, but it's quite hard to dance to because it's not what you expect, because most music you will dance to will have 4 beats to the bar, and most
true.
of their music does not.
And something of a dancing numpty as well. 2 left feet.
In that case, I think this is your ideal band, actually, because I don't think anyone can dance to this.
Yeah. Next time I'm rocking out to them, I'll try dancing as well. See how many things I break. So my understanding of what normal people do when they're dancing is that they do a set of moves and then they reset. So back to the start of the bar with the music, and then they go again.
Absolutely. If you think about traditional dancing, there are certain dances that work in different time signatures. So, for example, a waltz is in either 3/4 or 6/8, whereas a jive or something like that is in 4/4. And something like a tango is actually, I think it's 4/4, but it's the beats are emphasized slightly different. So there are like even traditional dances that work best with certain time signatures, but 5/8 or whatever these guys use quite often, I don't think there's any traditional dances that work with that. Having said that, these kind of time signatures that these guys use were used 100 years ago by Stravinsky, who wrote quite a lot of stuff. So they're not completely alien, but it's alien in rock music.
Would you call this math rock or maths rock? as we're in Britain.
I've been British and speaking British language. I have to say maths rock.
Does this qualify?
Yes, probably, because in a way, even though it sounds chaotic, there is actually a lot of rigidity going in there. There's nothing particularly random, and it's obviously been thought out in advance. And for example, with the weird time signatures, there will definitely be like 32 beats to the loop or something like that. But then within that, they will use different time signatures to bring it all back round to the start again. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got these building blocks and they've made them tessellate very well within the restriction of the looper. By doing that, they've actually are just naturally creating maths rock. It's planned to actually make you feel a little bit uncomfortable.
I was just checking. So math rock is atypical rhythmic structures, angular melodies, extended and often dissonant chords, emerged in the late 1980s. So complex time signatures, often things like 7/8, 11/8 or 13/8 even, and polyrhythms and meter changes. It is music that challenges you.
Yeah.
Minimal vocals, of course, and frequent use of stop-start dynamics. So the music abruptly shifts from high intensity sections to silence or sparse arrangements and back again. This duo do have all of that, don't they? They got pretty much all of that going on. So
yeah,
probably play a bit more of it actually. Let's hear the beginning. I'm trying desperately not to start nodding my head already. Would they be half as good without, the image, the get-up, so on, the weirdness?
Probably about half as good.
About half as good.
Yeah.
In their defense, that intro, I guess they haven't really kicked in totally just yet, have they? It's really where they start rocking out. I think that's where the magic happens.
It is. But this was the first track I ever heard. I hadn't even noticed the extra frets on the bass part of the instrument. And my first thing was like, oh, that's out of tune. And I hadn't actually realised they were using these microtones.
Yeah, because to your trained musical ear, it just sounded wrong.
Yeah. Does it sound wrong to you? I mean...
No, it just didn't. But then, as I was saying, just musical numpty, all that stuff. It's just, this is neat. I like, because I'm probably a sucker for music that leans into the sharps and the flats. So this is like that, but doubly.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? You mentioned about the many frets. I guess had this made especially.
Yeah.
Is that what you have to do then? You have to get a custom built guitar.
Yeah. And I did actually watch a video by the luthier who made that instrument for the KHN. And the guys made lots of guitars, and he said it's the first microtonal guitar he's made and the first double neck microtonal guitar and microtonal bass he's ever made. It's very unique and a very special instrument. So the thing is, if you want to do that, what a lot of people are doing, and I'll show you, is putting a couple of zip ties on, like in between your frets on your guitar.
And it works.
Just about, yeah. Shall I make myself bigger?
Do whatever pleases you. But yeah, sure.
Well,
yeah,
that's not you, of course.
Other way around.
That'll
do.
That'll do. Yeah, so normally on a guitar, the frets are a semitone apart or a half step if you're American. But so they're normally like that sort of interval. But by putting a zip tie or a cable tie between the frets, you get another fret. So you got that note. It doesn't work very well. You got that note there. So you've actually got these half notes. Well,
Why is that not working very well?
it's not working very well because the frets on this guitar are very fine and the cable ties are a little bit thick. It's working better on that string, and they're really tight, really close together as well. So it's very hard to play. Oh. It's something like that, but it's anyway. The zip tie thing isn't really the answer. I mean, the thing is, we're not unaccustomed to hearing notes that aren't actual real notes. For example, in blues, if you've got a little expression going like, then quite often people will bend the note. So when that note's bent, you're bending it to a note that doesn't exist, aren't you?
Yeah.
Which they actually call them blue notes. So that's what makes blues sound bluesy. So it's not like we're unaccustomed to hearing them.
When I'm down on my luck, even my dog ran away, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. So we're not unaccustomed to hearing them, but what you're not accustomed to hearing them is as part of the melody. We're used to hearing them as a passing note, the kind of the way you're leading into a note. I don't know. Like that sort of thing.
It's an accent on the note, rather.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, we've got a fretless bass. It's this absolutely gorgeous thing that I've actually owned since I was 21. Christ. Oh, bloody hell.
Broken it now. Looked after it so well. There you go.
So this thing has actually got, it doesn't have any frets, but it does have fret markers. So the actual note is actually on the fret. I suppose I can just play notes in between. So it's really hard to not play the real notes.
In theory, you've got an infinite number of notes on that thing.
It's that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something like that. So with the fretless bass, you could play all those notes, but we just don't. But you could if you wanted to.
Yeah, we just choose not to.
We are accustomed to hearing those kind of notes, but just not often and not as part of a melody.
What I've also got, just to illustrate that a bit more.
And now the musical science bit.
So essentially, this is a vibe-coded kind of rhythmic pulse visualizer, or wazometer, I'm calling it just at the moment. I'll publish this onto the Mafftopia website, mafftopia.com. So if you're interested to have a play around with this, just head over to there and give it a go. So we start with this. You can choose a time signature. And as you're saying about Angine de Poitrine, they play in a funny time signature, don't they? I think you mentioned 5/4. Also got 12/8. We've got a bunch of others on here as well, but 5/4. And so traditionally, 4/4 would be the thing. In each bar, you get 4 notes. Play that. So exciting stuff. And so you get the primary accent and then 3 unaccented beats after that. So still on the 4/4. If we go to a different grouping, so that's a grouping of basically 4 because it's just 4 notes in a row essentially. Group it differently, like 1/3. So then you would get the primary, then a secondary, and then the 2 unaccented beats. So that would be like so. And 2/2. So you get the primary to kick off the bar, then the unaccented, and then secondary, and then another unaccented. This is just grouped into 2 and then 2. Could listen to that for hours. So then if we switch over to the 5/4, maybe I'll speed it up a bit as well. The grouping on here then is 3/2, so 3 notes there, starting with its accented, and then another 2 starting with its secondary accented. So you've got your bar, each bar is 5 notes, and then how they're grouped within that bar is this sort of thing. They play the music quite fast, don't they? So at the moment, it's the fastest it'll go is 240 beats per minute. And say if we wanted to slightly recreate a bit of the music, and we're not going to recreate their music through this, obviously, but to just get to the nub of what time signature exactly they're playing, because we could pause it. Gets a bit annoying. Switch over to the pitch.
There is something about this microtonal stuff that they use, which I think might help you here. So you can see with my zip tie guitar, I've only put the zip ties on 2 frets here. But if you had like a riff that was like fairly normal, but then included one of the weird notes, it's going to sound very odd. That would just sound wrong. So I think what they have a lot of songs where they have a lot of notes are very close together. So that Sarniers one, for example, does have that all together. So part of the trick of what they do is they have the sort of microtonal notes in these like little runs like that. So maybe we could try and recreate something like that. So you've only got 3 notes to play with, yeah?
Yeah, 3 notes. Probably add some more.
So what I'd do is if you wanted to recreate what I did there, first note is a...
So the primary accent would be an E, is that right?
Yeah. And then the next one down would be E half flat. That's an E detuned by another half, like quarter step.
So it'd be a D sharp, except I don't have a E.
No.
There are no flats on here.
Oh, I see. There's no flats. Okay. So it'd be a D sharp
plus another half a sharp. D three-quarter sharp.
It's a D sharp tuned up another quarter semitone.
Sure. So far, we've got the primary. I just made all of those secondaries for now. They'll all play the D sharp. That's just E and D sharp at the moment. So if I ramp it up, that's plus the half a sharp. So from D sharp, that's a D sharp and a half.
And then make the third note just a straight D sharp.
Okay, like that. So now we've got E, D sharp, D sharp.
That's getting there, isn't it?
I could add a second unaccented beat. You could have 1 and 2 or something.
I'm not sure what it's playing now. So you got 5 beats there.
Yeah, the primary is E, then the secondary is D sharp because it's been detuned or fine tuned even really. Then we've got 3 beats of just pure D sharp at the moment.
Yeah, it's a shame you can't add more notes. Actually,
We could vibe code it.
okay, but
Should I do that?
what can you do? Can you do it right now?
Yeah, add how many extra beat notes? How many extra notes do you want?
It'd be good to have 5. So in total, so another 2.
Okay, so add 2 more unaccented beat notes so that there are 3. While that's going, I'm just going to have some of my jar of urine. This tea.
You're taking a piss.
This has now given us an extra couple of beat notes to work with. Okay, close the window. There are peasants outside making noise. Let's make the first one G. Was it G, the first one?
I think what we could try and do is something that, because I think it's important to keep all the notes fairly close together. So we'll do, in normal music, it would have been a chromatic run, but I think this one's probably called something like a semi-chromatic run. So let's actually start on a D. So the first note is a D.
Done.
Second note is D half sharp. It's
That
a
way
D.
round.
It's a D tuned up.
That. Gotcha.
The next note is D sharp, just a normal D sharp.
Okay, so far we got primary, secondary, then the first beat, the first unaccented, and then beat 2.
I've lost track of what notes we got. We've got a
Yes.
straight D, then we've got D half sharp,
Yep.
and then we've got a D sharp. What we want now is the D sharp, whatever that one is. So D sharp.
D sharp plus a half.
Yeah, and that should sound something like.
And then we've got one more note.
Oh, you got a spare note, have you?
So,
Oh, in which case, make it a E.
so we've got a bunch of notes right there. Is that about right?
It sounds a bit like that Sarniez track, doesn't it?
I think so. Let's make it faster. Is that anywhere near what they were playing? Awesome. Okay, so I'm glad I spent the day vibe coding this thing then to get that working. So success. Yeah. Stop that now.
Probably drive you mad.
Yeah. So that's a 5/4. Do they ever go to 12/8? I wonder.
Think
All of
so,
that.
yeah.
That's 3/3. You can put in different groupings for that.
Obviously, here what you've got, you've only got straight crotchet notes, haven't you? You can't do gaps and then sort of go. Oh. You know what I mean? You can't do the little gap.
Oh, it needs a gap.
Yeah, you need.
So a gap counts as one of the notes in the bar.
Yeah,
We could add a gap. Sometimes I put please putting these in because I feel like it's polite to say please, but I'm talking to a machine. Is the machine conscious? It actually might be. Just like for a brief little snapshot of time, always say your pleases and thank yous because one day these things are going to just be ruling the world.
yeah.
They'll remember who was polite and who wasn't. Please. I forgot what I was doing now. Adding in a pause. Is that the correct nomenclature?
It's technically a rest.
Which is the sound of silence. We could do Simon and Garfunkel next.
What we could have done actually is we could have probably made it so that we only had 4 notes. So you could probably just put one note on a super low octave so you didn't actually hear it.
Oh, actually, yeah. So before I run that,
Because then it would sound more like.
yeah.
And then you wouldn't actually hear the E.
So octave 2 is the lowest.
Do that and you probably won't hear it. And it might sound a little bit more groovy just with that note missing.
So 5/4 and oh, I didn't remember it. God
Oh.
damn it. Bloody thing. Oh, I hate vibe coding. We'll have to put it in again. Oh no, it's actually that's okay. I think all it's forgotten is this bit. I guess because the last one is almost inaudible, so it's probably fine, isn't it? So, there you go. Play that for another half an hour and we've got ourselves a video.
Yeah, essentially what you got there, you've got a little microtonal run and you've got a time signature that isn't 4/4. And it does sound a little bit like that Sarniez track.
We could play that and you won't be able to tell the difference. It's just indistinguishable. Yeah, it's actually basically the same, isn't it?
It's not far off.
Yeah, you could probably do the percussion bit in that widget, the Visualise, the Zometer widget. Yeah. God damn, that's so good. There you go. We just recreated Angine de Poitrine through the medium of vibe coding and hacking it. And we didn't even need to wear the masks or anything.
No, not at all. That actually brings me on to a point, which is what I think they're all about. It's almost a bit of a backlash against all the AI music that's appearing at the moment. The reason being, as we know, AI just takes everything that it can possibly learn and then reproduces it using what it knows. But because there's so little microtonal music around and there's so little rock music in weird time signatures, that it's going to be a long time before, probably a few weeks before AI starts producing music like this.
Almost half of what they are is the visual side of it, the weirdness, but it's the live performance. That's why listening to human created music is just so much more rewarding than just listening to AI generated music. It's because you know that there's human effort going into it, and so you engage with the music more, knowing that they've practiced and they've created something skilled and there's genuine skill going into the performance.
I've got some thoughts about the way they actually do it, because they're clearly both highly skilled musicians. We probably haven't given enough credit to KEXP, the drummer, as well, because he's just phenomenal. But the way they're so synced up together is phenomenal, because if anyone's ever tried to use a looper, they are actually incredibly hard to use, actually. I know people like Ed Sheeran has made an entire career out of using a looper and has become one of the most successful musician people on the planet. But they are very hard to use.
With Ed Sheeran, he fills the stadium with sound, doesn't he, from his one guitar? I always wondered a bit about that. So he's just setting layers of looping on that.
Yeah, he also does looping with his voice as well. He will do his own harmonies and backing vocals.
But he was cheating.
It's not, though, because it's so damn skillful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to use a looper is difficult enough. To play drums along with it is also incredibly skilled. So I do have a little theory about this. Give an example. Okay, so one of the ways I think they're doing this is the looper that KEXP has got. I think it's a Boss looper, and there is a facility on that where you can synchronize it to a drum machine, which is what this guy does. This guy's called Dr. Funk. He hangs around in Newquay in Cornwall, and he busks on his own with a bass guitar and a looper and a drum machine. Let's just see how he starts. You'll see he starts the drum machine first, then plays a bit, then you'll see his foot stamp on the looper to set the loop. And with a looper, you hit the foot switch twice, once to start recording the loop, and then the second one stops the recording and then loops from that point onwards. So he starts the drum machine and then he messes about a little bit, and then he'll start a bit of a riff and he will loop that.
Pretty good. Funky. So is that layered already? Is that looping?
No. Did you hear the two clicks there? There was two clicks. There was one where he started doing that main riff, and then now he's just, that last click was when he just stamped on the foot pedal again. So now it's just the first one looping. So this is the first riff that's looping. I know he's a very good slap bass player, and this is
That's the thing. So I wondered if he'd already started that, because he seemed to be playing notes that he wasn't playing, but it's just because he's a very good musician.
He's a very good slap player. So now it is looping. You'll see at the moment.
Yeah, with that.
So
clicks. Yeah.
at that point, it's actually layered two loops on top of each other, and it's in time with the drum machine, which makes things easier because you're hearing the drums. It's easy to play along with the drum beat and then be on time, because you want your first beat to be bang on in time with the next one that comes round. So the looper's going to loop that distance anyway. So I think what's going on with Angine de Poitrine, within their costumes, within their heads, they've got headphones and stuff, right? KEXP down on his pedal board, I haven't totally examined it yet, but I'm sure there's some sort of little drum machine type thing, which is probably just doing a click track that you can't hear, but they can hear. So they're hearing that in headphones, and that way KEXP and KEXP can be completely synced up, and KEXP can just play along with the click track from the drum machine.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they managed to be like amazingly well in time, which is brilliant.
Because it's the precision of it, isn't it? They're just absolutely bang on with every part of each bar.
Yeah, and I think that's how they do it. They're so non-AI that there's not even a computer involved. It's just a looper and possibly a drum machine, and that's it. And the rest of it is done by two humans making this incredible music.
I wouldn't find the music nearly as engaging if it was just a computer shouting out the not so. If it was just a computer, just churning out the notes.
Yeah, I think you proved that by the fact that you've invented your Wazometer. And would you want to listen to that all day?
Oh, I do, but that's a different thing. That's more that I've got issues, I think. It's just so this is the thing, when they start rocking out. The way I see it about just why the music is just so damned addictive, because it really is. I just can't get enough of it. It's the flow state. This is my theory. I've been listening to the music quite a lot, beyond what's in the KEXP session. Quick reminder that this is from a consumer, not a music theorist. The name flow state was coined back in the 70s by the psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I think that's roughly the pronunciation. He realized that human beings are happiest when they're completely, relentlessly immersed in an activity. They lose all sense of space and time. To get into the flow state, which is essentially perfect concentration, you have to be doing some task or other that's just the right level of challenging. You get little dopamine rewards each time you succeed because you just completed a little micro challenge. It's immensely satisfying. It's like you could be reading a literary novel that's quite challenging, but surprise, there's an actual story unfolding in there too, and it gets quite exciting. The story gets exciting. So there's a conscious satisfaction. Holy moly, I understand what I'm reading. What's going on? But then when you get that, you're not really in the flow state. It's more the unconscious enjoyment of what you're doing. Or say if you're watching Akira, the film Akira had a re-release very recently, and I went to see it. Hadn't watched it for 20 years maybe, and it was awesome and quite deep. And that's the thing. There's all the teenage gangs on motorbikes and violence and body horror, all that good stuff. But beneath all of that, there's also pretty deep philosophy. What it means to create a god. Can a new universe be spawned from a single thought? Are you then God in that universe? And what if the thought comes from an angry teenager? Oh no, we've created a monster. But the point is that if you're deep into watching the film, that philosophical exploration is hugely satisfying. So that's kind of part of what makes Akira a classic. You're probably wondering, what's that got to do with Angine de Poitrine? It's essentially to make it enjoyable, satisfying, addictive. There's a balance to be had. If the challenge is too difficult, then instead of enjoyment, there's frustration. It becomes like, oh, I suck, instead of I rock. Angine de Poitrine, Poitrine? The challenge for me is pronouncing their name, God damn it. Angine de Poitrine strikes exactly the right balance, masterfully. The difficult stuff is the unconventional time signatures and the off-kilter notes. But then each song latches onto a repeated sequence, the riff, maybe, like over and over. So they challenge you, but they challenge your brain. Then they reward you. So it's like challenge, reward, over and over. I think I saw someone mentioning on YouTube, they always come back to the G note, I think, like over and over. So it grounds you. It keeps it within the realm of music that we understand.
What I noticed is that Angine de Poitrine don't tend to use chords that involve microtonal notes. They seem to use the microtonal notes, and then from that, they will have what we call the third interval above that to essentially make a normal sounding major chord. The reason being, if they were to start using chords with kind of microtonal notes, it would sound really too odd.
It'd be jarring.
So, for example, you got like a E and an E flat together. Thanks. I'm going to have to take these things off.
Got your scissors.
I know, I just want to be careful though, because it's an 800 quid guitar. Oof. He says getting his Swiss Army knife out.
Yeah. If you grip the fretboard with a pair of pliers.
So I have just removed the microtonal accessory from my guitar.
Welcome back to planet Earth.
Yeah, so you get normal notes. They sound really boring. So for example, like an E and an E flat, which sounds like this, which is quite horrible. There again, music is very strange because, say, for example, if you had like a F and an E together, they would sound like that. But if you play an F chord like that, and then you add...
Lovely.
And then you add an E to it, but you don't have the E next to that particular F. So the F is down here, and the E is the open string at the top. It creates a, I think it's an F major 7. Which is an absolutely delightful chord. So that should be dissonant, but it's not because the F and the E are quite far apart. So it's really interesting the way our brain conceives frequencies and notes and all that. And it's probably to do with like just conditioning over years.